the city that couldn't stop dancing for 6 days straight. In the summer of 1518, in the city of Strasbourg, a woman stepped outside her home and began to dance. Alone, in the street, with no music playing. She didn't stop, not after an hour, not after a full day. She kept dancing without rest, without explanation, until her feet bled and her body gave out from sheer exhaustion. And within days, dozens more people joined her, then hundreds. This is the story of the dancing plague of 1518, one of the strangest, best documented mass phenomena in European history. And this is UNTOLDIA. The story begins with a woman named Frau Troffea. According to multiple historical records from the time, she began dancing in the streets sometime in July 1518, seemingly without any trigger, without music, and without any apparent reason. Her neighbors initially assumed it would pass. It didn't. She continued for days, dancing continuously, collapsing occasionally from exhaustion, only to get back up and continue again. Within roughly a week, historical accounts suggest around 30 other people had joined her, gripped by the same uncontrollable urge to dance. City authorities, alarmed by what was happening, initially responded in a way that by modern standards sounds almost unbelievable. Rather than trying to stop the dancing, physicians of the time, operating under the medical theories of that era, concluded that the afflicted needed to dance the sickness out of their bodies. Acting on this belief, city officials actually built a wooden stage and hired musicians to play continuously, encouraging the afflicted to keep dancing, believing this would help them recover faster. It had the opposite effect entirely. Rather than curing the affliction, this response appeared to accelerate it. More and more people began joining the dancing, seemingly compelled by a force they couldn't explain or control. By the peak of the outbreak, historical records suggest the number of afflicted dancers grew to somewhere between 50 and 400 people, with contemporary accounts describing people dancing continuously for days, some reportedly collapsing from heart attacks, strokes, and complete physical exhaustion. Multiple historical sources indicate that in the weeks following the outbreak, deaths did occur among those affected, though exact numbers remain difficult to verify precisely, given the record-keeping limitations of the era. As the epidemic grew increasingly alarming, city authorities eventually reversed their approach entirely. Music and public dancing were banned. The afflicted were instead taken to a religious shrine, where local beliefs at the time attributed the affliction to a curse from Saint Vitus, a Catholic saint associated in regional folklore with nervous disorders and compulsive dancing. Victims were prayed over, given red shoes to wear, believed at the time to have specific religious significance in countering the affliction. By September 1518, roughly 2 months after it began, the epidemic finally subsided, as mysteriously as it had started, with survivors gradually returning to normal life and historical records of new cases eventually ceasing entirely. So what actually caused hundreds of people to dance uncontrollably for days at a time in one of the most well-documented cases of mass hysteria in European history? Modern historians and researchers have proposed several competing theories, though to this day none has been definitively proven. One of the most widely discussed theories suggests ergot poisoning, caused by a toxic mold that can grow on damp rye, a staple grain of that region and era. Ergot contains compounds chemically related to LSD, and in cases of severe contamination can cause hallucinations, convulsions, and involuntary muscle spasms. Some researchers have proposed this could explain, at least partially, the symptoms observed.
However, critics of this theory point out that ergot poisoning typically also causes other severe physical symptoms, including gangrene and significant impairment of physical coordination, which seems difficult to reconcile with accounts of people dancing continuously for extended periods. The theory that has gained the most traction among modern historians, however, is one rooted in psychology rather than biology: mass psychogenic illness, more commonly known as mass hysteria. Strasbourg in 1518 was a city under immense collective stress. The region had recently suffered severe famine, widespread disease outbreaks, and extreme economic hardship. Combined with deeply held religious beliefs about curses and divine punishment, some historians argue that the psychological and social conditions were uniquely primed for a stress-induced, involuntary physical response to spread rapidly through a population already existing on the edge of collective panic. Remarkably, the Strasbourg outbreak of 1518 wasn't even the only documented dancing epidemic in European history. Similar, smaller-scale outbreaks were recorded in the centuries prior, dating back as far as the 11th century, though none were as extensively documented or as large in scale as the outbreak in Strasbourg. What makes this story so unsettling, even today, isn't just the strangeness of the event itself, but how thoroughly it was documented by contemporaries who witnessed it directly. Physicians, city council records, and religious authorities of the time all independently describing the same core phenomenon. Hundreds of people dancing uncontrollably, unable to stop, some to the point of death. To this day, no single explanation has been universally accepted by historians. Was it toxic poisoning? Was it a psychological epidemic born from unbearable collective trauma? Or was it something else entirely, something that history, despite its detailed records, still hasn't fully explained? So the next time you're at a wedding or a party, dancing to music you can actually hear, remember, 500 years ago, an entire city danced to a rhythm no one could explain, and many of them never stopped until their bodies simply gave out. If you enjoyed this story, let us know in the comments, what do you think really caused it? Subscribe to UNTOLDIA for more stories history forgot to highlight. We'll see you in the next one.